we've stayed connected with yesterday's guest. It's part 2 of author Marti Healy, coming up next. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Franklin G. Burroughs Simeon B. Chapin Art Museum at 3100 South Ocean Boulevard in Myrtle Beach, right at the southern end of Ocean Boulevard, a little north of Myrtle Beach State Park. We're focused on the God-Dog Connection, part 2, and we're visiting with its author, Marti Healy. Good morning, Marti, and thank you for coming back to be with us this morning.
There aren't too many people I get up early in the morning.
Not having traveled back to Aiken last night to be here, we really appreciate you coming back in. And of course, viewers who were with us yesterday are thrilled to see you. Viewers who missed you yesterday can hear a little bit about your about the God-Dog Connection and your tremendous book.
Well, and then I also learned in the meantime too that you were received quite an honor last week. Last Thursday,
yes.
That's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Citizen of the Year, yeah.
That is fabulous. Well, congratulations.
Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. Yes, it was very nice. I was overwhelmed, and it was tough getting through that speech. They had given me no time limits this year for that. Last year at an event, they'd give me a 5-minute time limit. I went 10 or 15. So this year they said no time limits.
Well, 5 is way too short. You can't really say anything in that.
5 is, yeah. 30 minutes was probably way too long for half the crowd last week, but it's beyond us. It's over, and hopefully.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm honored to be here as your guest.
No, not at all.
Fabulous.
That's very kind. Well, of course, the real thrill yesterday was hearing about some of the big names we didn't talk about yesterday. Were 4 special names, I think, Sophie and Teddy and Katie and Sparky.
Yes,
Share with viewers a little about, particularly from yesterday, who were with us, who didn't hear you talk about.
Well, I wrote the book while I was still living in Indiana, and one of the primary dogs featured in that was my dog Pookie. That she did pass away of old age, so she did not make the move with me. She was gone before I moved to South Carolina. But I did have the 2 cats, and bringing 2 cats on a 12-hour car trip, actually they were pretty good. They did a wonderful job and relocated beautifully. And I thought, well, moving to South Carolina, I'll just get a terrier or a Jack Russell or one of those dogs that are so prevalent in the horse district, particularly in Aiken. But I have a habit of taking in whoever needs me, whoever I've come across or is out in the middle of the street, or just any foundling rescues, as it were. Right. So I now have 2 going on 60 pounds apiece. They're very large dogs.
Yeah.
And they're mixed breeds, both of them, which I love. They seem to make the best for me. Sophie is a redhead. She was the first one that I came across. She was only 8 weeks old, and I found her in the middle of a highway and just kind of dodging traffic. And so I screeched to a stop and grabbed her, and she's been with me ever since.
Wow.
She's got enough retriever in her that she wants to please, and she's just a wonderful dog, smart as a whip. But she's also got a lot of chow in her, and that kind of breed digs their heels in, and kind of, don't want to, can't make me kind of attitude on things. So we've been to puppy school twice, but she is a very, very smart dog, and I just love her to death. Then after I'd had her for about a year, I found Teddy, who was in a rainstorm and soaking wet and miserable. He's very small for the breed, but he's a kind of a German Shepherd mix.
Right.
And he was pitiful. He just was pitiful. I thought he was an old dog, just barely hanging on. He had hardly any hair left. He was covered with fleas and ticks, and had on this nasty collar that had the hook had been taped shut, that he could never be off, and and his back legs were kind of atrophied from being tied so long. So it took a while. He wasn't even sure he wanted to live, but Sophie kept after him to play and play, and he didn't know how to play. He didn't know what to do with the ball. I hand fed him. My best friend, who is also my employer, Barry, was quite an animal whisperer, and he just spent hours talking to him. And finally, after a few days, Teddy did decide he wanted to live and to be with us. And now he's just got laughing eyes. He had dead eyes at first. So I think rescues are put in our paths for a reason, and obviously put into our hearts very strongly. I feel we should rescue dogs much more or first before we go after those pure breeds. And nothing against the purebreds; they're wonderful animals, and people who support the breeds are very faithful animal caregivers. But just don't forget those who need us.
Right.
Yes.
Is the God dog for folks that, whether they're Christians or not, or any members of faith?
I've had a lot of people say that they have given it to friends of theirs who are different faiths and who have no faith at all.
Right.
And I think that tickles me the most, because it has kind of become a ministry. I didn't really write it that way, but it's become a ministry in that it is a way to reach out to someone who, in a very non-threatening way, very gentle way. One of my quarrels with faith writers today is they tend to put their thoughts down. Is this the way it is? This is the interpretation of the Bible. This is exactly what God meant. And I don't think that we have the right to do that. I think it's so far beyond our comprehension. It's just this is what I think. This is just a thought, a way to think about it. And so it is, as I said, very non-threatening. And people who love animals can relate to it. But even if they don't, in fact, my cousin read the manuscript before it was published, and she turned to her husband and she says, "Oh, we've got to get a dog." She'd never had an animal before in her life, and so it turned her on to animals. So hopefully it works both ways. But she was very strong in her faith.
And did she get a dog?
No, they've gotten a cat, but
Is that right?
they're working up to a dog, I think.
So cats are a good primer before a dog.
Well, I think people who've never had a cat don't appreciate how much of a presence in your life they can bring.
Right, yeah.
They can be every bit as companionable as a dog. And they don't have to be walked, which is kind of fun too. But it's your own personal preference. I like having both. My dogs have always loved my cats, and vice versa.
Really?
Just get along beautifully. One of the cats, Katie, has developed feline dementia. That's a whole another book in and of itself. She's a hoot. But the dogs, are rather startled by her sometimes. She lets out these loud yowls for no reason. She sees things that aren't there.
Is that right? Or maybe they are there. Yeah.
You never know. She could be seeing things that we just don't see. And she does kind of inappropriate behavior, or just unusual. Like I came home one day and she was curled up in the dog's bowl, sleeping. And she's deaf as a post, so she screams because she can't hear herself. But
this is who again?
This is Katie. This is the older cat. She's about 18, and
18.
She's interesting. But the dogs are very, very good to the cats, and vice versa.
That's fascinating.
I think animals will rise to the behavior of what you expect from them.
You actually brought, of course, a copy of the book here, again, for viewers who may have missed that yesterday, who weren't with us to see a shot of the God Dog connection. And on the front, you've got
that's Pookie right there on the front.
Who is no longer with us.
Yes.
Who passed away before
I moved down.
Before you actually moved to Aiken in 2004, you said?
Yes,
Right, in 2004. I wonder if you'd be willing to share. You've got 25, I think you shared in here yesterday, 25 pieces you've done.
Yes, 25 individual stories.
I hate to ask you to focus on one. Do you think there's one maybe you could pull out?
There's one that seems to be kind of a favorite of several people. It actually features the cats.
Features the cats.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But it's...
Ooh, it looks like you turned it down.
Yes.
You thought I was going to ask you that. Wow, look at that. Here we go. This is God talking. Yeah.
It's called A Paw for a Paw, which obviously relates to that lesson in the Bible that's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Most people think that, look at that in one particular way. I see it a little differently, and this story kind of relates the way that I think is another way we can interpret that story.
And again, real quick before you do that, for viewers who weren't with us yesterday, just the piece is, we've got this is the confluence of animals and God. In this instance, cats and dogs.
Yes, it's as I said, a collection of 25 different stories. They're all structured the same way, and then it first talks about the animal behavior that I've observed, and then the faith lesson that I think we can draw from that. And it's, as I said, just a collection of 25 little stories. Interestingly, and we mentioned this yesterday too, I wanted 25. I didn't know why. It just felt like a good number when I started to write them, but I only got 23. Right. And then I went to church that Sunday and got 2 more stories out of that same single sermon. So it was like God said, sure, you want 25? Here's 2 more you can write. And it did start in a Bible study class with
You mean the first one?
The
not
whole
the
concept.
24th and 5th, but the whole concept.
Of the God-dog connection was from learning in Genesis, that part where God gives man the breath of life. And our leader turned to us and said, now what does that mean to you? Well, I always relate anything that I'm learning new into the context that I know, and to me that's animal. So anything that I learn, I tend to put into animal behavior. And I know from experience that horses like to breathe up your nose when they get to know you.
Really?
I don't know how familiar you are with
I don't know anything about horses, so that's good to know.
And then, of course, to be polite, you have to return the favor and breathe up theirs. But it's really a wonderful experience, because it's this wonderful horsey smell of oats and grass and hay, and the soft breath just poof across your face and up your nose, and it's a very intimate sharing of life breath. And so I said that right out loud in class. I said, well, I think God giving man the breath of life is like a horse getting to know you likes to breathe up your nose. Right. So this class is absolute silence. And then somebody started to giggle, and then we all started to laugh, and I laughed too. I thought, well, that's just me. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I thought, well, maybe that's not so silly, because here it is, this wonderful, intimate exchange of life breath, one species to another, getting to know each other. Maybe that is like what it was. And so I started then observing, again, the lessons that we were learning in class, and I put them into animal behavior context and said, well, that kind of makes sense.
Right.
Started to write them down, showed them to my boss, who also has been my best friend for 30-some years.
Barry Doss.
Barry Doss.
Yes,
He's the owner of the Design Group and the Design Group Press, which is now publishing my books. And he said, yes, I think you have a book here, so keep writing, keep doing that.
Wonderful.
And he would review each story that and they just tumbled out. I couldn't hardly write them down.
He said that even well before the Design Group got involved. I mean, you went ahead and you shared yesterday that you actually sold 5,000 before they recognized, wow. I mean, not that they hadn't recognized if he was involved that early on. He knew what was happening.
He knew what it was, and he was my friend. We
Sure.
just had never really focused on it.
Right.
We have since established the Design Group Press, which not only has taken on this book and other books that I am currently in the process of publishing and developing, but a few other very selected authors have come to us for us to develop their books as well.
Good.
So, because we do the whole thing, all the development, design, production, editing if necessary, whatever they would like us to participate in, and all the way through the production process with a lot of care and attention. And this is not saying anything about the major publishers, but they do have to be real selective with who they can publicize. And you might go to them with a beautiful book, and then it just lays there. Nothing ever happens to it.
Sure.
We take on so few projects that we can give each of them very personalized attention and personal design, that a real sensitivity to it, as opposed to just kind of not cookie cutter, knocked out. So that's what I wanted to happen to my book. And so I felt strongly about going through our graphic designers and production folks.